In February 1959, 9 experienced Soviet hikers inexplicably tore open their tent, fled barefoot into 30 degrees Celsius weather, and were later found dead with baffling injuries. A series of strange events that to this day has never been explained. This is the terrifying story of Dyatlov Pass. On January 26, 1959, 9 members of the Moscow Ski Club set out across the northern Ural Mountains in northwest Russia. Their route took them through a remote area known as Dyatlov Pass, and while it was an experienced group of hikers, they had not ventured into such remote wilderness in the dead of winter before. But they were well prepared for their journey, carrying skis, sleds, and enough food to last them the entire trip. As the group made their way through the thick snow, they encountered unusually warm temperatures, which melted much of the snow and ice, making for difficult travel. But they pressed on, reaching a spot called a Torton Mountain on February 2nd. Here they set up camp, built a fire, and made preparations for the next leg of their journey. But during the night, something woke them up. The group's tent was ripped open, and all 9 men fled into the freezing cold. It wasn't like the group to abandon their camp in the middle of the night. So what could have driven them to do such a thing? One might assume they were frightened by a wild animal, but there are no predators in the area that could have forced the men to abandon their tent in terror. Adding to the mystery, the men were found several miles away from their camp in a small ravine, completely naked except for their socks. All of them were frozen solid when discovered, and while autopsies revealed the cause of death to be hypothermia, they also had strange injuries. 2 of the men had severe skull fractures, one with a completely fractured jaw. Another had several broken ribs. One man's tongue was missing, and another's eyes had been gouged out. Several of the men also had strange lacerations on their bodies, which doctors could not explain. With no witnesses and no physical evidence left behind, speculation ran wild about what could have happened to the men. Some believe the group encountered a creature so terrifying that it drove them to abandon their camp in terror. Locals in the area spoke of a beast that stalked the mountains, preying on hikers and skiers. But while there are many reports of strange, unidentified animals in the woods, none have ever been substantiated. And while some of the injuries the men suffered, such as their missing eyes and torn tongues, could be consistent with animal attack, others, such as the skull fractures, would not. Another popular theory is that the men were the victims of military tests being conducted in the area at the time. The Soviet Union was in the midst of developing new and powerful weapons, and it was possible that the men may have stumbled into a testing ground and been killed by a new explosive device or weaponized virus. While this theory seems plausible, there's no hard evidence to support it. Perhaps the most controversial theory is that the men were killed by aliens. While there's absolutely no evidence to support this claim, some believe that the strange injuries the men suffered, such as the missing eyes and fractured skulls, could be consistent with an extraterrestrial attack. After all, the men were found in a remote area of the mountains, far from prying eyes and any hope of rescue. It is easy to see how a UFO could land nearby and abduct the men without anyone ever knowing. But perhaps the truth is much more mundane. While there's no evidence to support it, some believe the men may have simply panicked when they realized they were lost in the wilderness and made a fatal series of decisions that led to their deaths. They tore open their tent and fled into the freezing cold, believing that they would be safer outside than inside the tent. When they realized they were too cold to continue walking, they stripped off their clothes in an attempt to warm themselves and then huddled together for warmth. This would explain the strange injuries as well. When the men fell to the ground, their bodies were scraped and torn by the rough terrain, and their eyes and tongues may have been injured by the ice and snow. While we may never know exactly what happened to the men at Dyatlov Pass, one thing is certain. It's a tragedy that should serve as a warning to anyone who ventures into the wilderness unprepared. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more content.